On World News Tonight, Pope John Paul, the leader of more than 1 billion Catholics, is very close to death. The Vatican says there is no further hope for recovery. Millions of people in many parts of the world are simply waiting and praying. The Saudi Arabian prince charged with helping to smuggle 2 tons of cocaine. Is the Saudi government protecting him? And it's Friday, so we'll have our Person of the Week, trying to change a child's life with a photograph.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. Like broadcasters all over the world, we have been sitting right here for many hours now, believing that at any moment we would learn the Pope had died. And everyone to whom we've listened in the last several hours has said in one way or another that the time had come. There was no hope for recovery now. In Rome, which surrounds Vatican City, the word went out that the end was nigh. And now, as you can see, many thousands of people are there in St. Peter's Square to pray for a peaceful end for this extraordinary man who has made such a mark on the 20th century. John Paul's influence, as we all know, extends far beyond the 1 billion Roman Catholics in the world. And as people in St. Peter's Square and elsewhere wait for the inevitable tonight, from Poland to the Philippines for that matter, in every corner of the globe, millions of people know that incredible times are coming to an end. We have several reports. We're going to go first to ABC's David Wright, who is in Vatican City.
Peter, it was an extraordinary day here in Rome, as if the entire city were holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable.
Santa Madre di Dio, prega per noi.
They came to pray.
Ave o Maria, piena di grazia.
Cristo,
They came to say their goodbyes.
Cristo, pietà.
Most of all, they just wanted to be here. This evening, or this night, said the Vatican's Vicar General, Christ opens the door to the Pope.
Santa Maria,
Tonight, all these people came to send him on his way. At St. John Lateran Basilica tonight, the Vicar of Rome said Mass. When the Pope dies, he will make the official announcement.
Già vede e già tocca il Signore.
He is already seeing and touching the Lord, said Cardinal Camillo Ruini. He is already united with our Savior. Vatican officials say the Pope's health is notably compromised, with shortness of breath, heart and kidney failure, the latest in a long list of problems. The papal spokesman described the Pope's condition as very grave. As he said so, he fought back tears. Tonight, the only sign of life, a light in the papal apartments. Officials say John Paul is still at work. Today, he appointed 12 new bishops and archbishops. He said Mass, met with top cardinals of the Church, and said the Stations of the Cross.
I think he's trying to show people that even if we consider this time of life kind of coming to an end and being over, there is still a continuity. There's a continuity with everything he has done before.
When I see a Christian face death with courage, it gives me courage. And very few people have faced death as the Pope has, with such command and serenity and faith.
Polish television, which has very good sources inside this papacy, is reporting that just a few hours ago, John Paul blessed a golden crown, and that tomorrow morning that crown will be placed in front of the most important Polish icon at the Vatican, the Black Madonna kept in the crypt of St. Peter's. In Poland, this is being seen as a farewell gesture from the first non-Italian pope in nearly 500 years. Peter?
Thank you, David. Many Americans, of course, have been to St. Peter's Square. It can be an electrifying place under any circumstances. ABC's George Stephanopoulos has spent the day in St. Peter's today. George, I was thinking that I was there the night that he was selected. It must be very moving for you tonight.
It was, Peter. So many people came to the square today to say goodbye, and it built up during the day. And, you know, earlier today was a magnificent day here in Rome, and people gathered in that square. It was like an outdoor chapel. And everyone who came in, whether they were fingering their rosaries or kneeling on the cobblestones or even holding impromptu masses, all had their eyes fixed on that papal apartment, on those windows where the Pope is staying. And what hit home most for me, Peter, earlier in the day I spoke with a young woman who goes to Christendom College in Northern Virginia, and I asked, what are you praying for exactly? And she said, a good death. And so many people came here today, and by coming here and praying for the Pope, they were trying to give him that gift, a good death.
Many thanks, George. You see those two lighted windows up there in the papal chambers. The one light you don't see is on the very right of the building there at the northern end of St. Peter's Square, and that exactly is his bedroom, and his bedroom has not had a light on as we have looked over the last several hours. Our medical editor, Tim Johnson, has been here with us for much of the day. Nobody wishes to hasten the Pope's death, Tim, but very struck by the Vatican announcement many, many hours ago that all of the physical signs said this was the time.
Over 6 hours ago, in the last written communication we have had from the Vatican, they describe a general worsening of the cardiorespiratory system and specific problems with shallow breathing, with kidney insufficiency, and with low blood pressure. Medically speaking, that is a description of a dying man, and it certainly would appear that the Pope has finally entered the terminal phase of his illness.
We've actually talked a couple of times today about what an extraordinarily strong man he's been, 84 years old, and he has not gone willingly.
He is a fighter, but he is facing his final battle.
Yeah, many thanks, Tim. Dr. Tim Johnson, our medical editor. He was an electrifying figure for Americans, whether you were Catholic or not. People know that. He made 7 trips to this country as the Pope. He actually went to Alaska twice. He was, of course, controversial here. Some American Catholics have chafed at his insistence that they follow the Church's traditional social doctrines. But every time the Gallup organization asked Americans who are those people they admire most, John Paul always made the top 10 list. And that admiration and affection was very clear today in many corners of America. Here's ABC's Dean Reynolds.
Though the end has been coming for weeks, American Catholics today are being forced to consider life without John Paul II. In New York,
I think there's a concern with where our church may go. It may change direction.
In Washington,
whoever comes next has some huge shoes to fill.
In Atlanta,
John Paul II is the only pope I've ever known. And so it will really be ushering in a new age.
Today, the faithful lighted their candles, said their prayers a bit more fervently, perhaps, and they waited.
It's really a beautiful thing to be able to watch him just accept what the Lord has prepared for him. It's a lesson to us.
A lesson they were teaching at a Catholic school near Green Bay this morning about death and dignity.
And how many of you have been paying attention to that? And how many of you have been discussing it with your families? The main thing that I think that the kids can learn from this is the way that he's dying.
In Boston, their affection and admiration were indisputable.
He inspired me, basically. And I found him to be a humble man, genuine man.
Here in Chicago, where there are more Poles than in any city outside Warsaw, the papacy of John Paul II is a point of tremendous pride.
When he was chosen to be a pope, I wasn't even born yet. So it's like my whole life I was brought up as he was the Polish pope.
John Paul's likeness adorns the walls of St. Hyacinth Basilica in this heavily Polish Chicago neighborhood, where they talk of the Pope's 1979 visit to the city as if it were yesterday. And yet the sea of vacant pews, even on this day and in this Polish church, points up a problem for Catholics in this country.
There are a lot of achievements of the pontificate of John Paul II, but there are a lot of problems that are left for his successor.
Abortion, birth control, women priests, the list of contested issues is long, not to mention the priest sex abuse scandal, and it's all driven a wedge between the Vatican and America, regardless of the Pope's standing in the world.
For the vast majority of Catholics and for the vast majority of other people, the Pope was just an icon, a celebrity, a figure that they could applaud, and then they could go home and do what they wanted.
And now, Peter, they are holding their 4th Mass of the day here at St. Hyacinth Basilica, where, frankly, they are no longer praying for the Pope's recovery, but just that he have a painless and a peaceful death.
Many thanks, Dean. One smiles and one thinks about the deep attachment that Polish Americans have to the Pope, but nobody in the entire world has ever had an attachment to this man like the people of Poland. And ABC's Jim Sciutto is there tonight.
Millions of Poles joined in a common prayer today in the capital, Warsaw, in Krakow, where John Paul II once served as Archbishop, and in the nearby village of Wodowice, where he was born. I remember him as a child, this woman said. Maybe God will help him again. We can only hope. Across the country, schools closed so children could pray. Many adults took at least a few minutes from work to join them. For us Poles, the Holy Father is like someone in our own family. Poland is overwhelmingly Catholic, but John Paul II is a giant here regardless of religion. Today, the Polish president recalled the Pope's pledge early in his papacy to change the face of Poland and thanked him for fulfilling that promise. He is the greatest Pole in our history, this man said. Each time the Pope has come home during his papacy, millions came to see him. Today, people told us how much they owe the man they know as Karol Wojtyła for his moral and political leadership.
You can say that he grew with us and we with him. So in every important moment of his life, or our life, of the city as a Poland, we were together.
Today, even on the clearest of spring days, one priest said that without John Paul II, we will have lost our sunlight. Jim Sciutto, ABC News, Krakow.
Here's another way to think of his impact. 50% of the world never knew another pope. He served that long, and he was a rock star as well as a religious leader. Our coverage will continue later this evening. We will, on this broadcast, be back with other news in just a moment, including the news today that a Saudi prince who is a fugitive from American justice is the subject